Hey everyone! Today I'm giving you a complete but concise guide to cottage cheese. Short, clear, and practical. We'll break down what cottage cheese actually does for your body, how to choose a high-quality product at the store, and the common mistakes that completely cancel out its benefits. Everything in this video is based on scientific data and clinical recommendations. Sources are in the description below. Let's get started. Remember how your grandmother used to say, "Eat cottage cheese, it'll make your bones strong." She was absolutely right, but only halfway. And here's why. Recent European research in gerontology has shown something surprising. Cottage cheese is truly unique, but not just because of calcium like most people think. It's much more interesting than that. Think of your body as a construction site. It constantly needs repairs. Cells renew themselves, muscles rebuild, bones strengthen. Cottage cheese is like a delivery truck bringing not just bricks, but ready-made building blocks of exactly the right quality. Your body looks at it and says, "Perfect, this is exactly what I need." In 100 grams of high-quality cottage cheese, and remember that word high quality because in 3 minutes I'll explain why it's critical, you get 16 to 21 grams of protein on average. That's clean, highly bioavailable protein your body absorbs at a rate of 92 to 95%. For comparison, beef is absorbed at about 85%. Some plant proteins, only 50 to 60%. So yes, cottage cheese is almost the perfect protein source. Almost. Why almost? I'll explain in a minute. But the most interesting part isn't even that. Cottage cheese contains a key amino acid, leucine. Leucine acts like a trigger for muscle protein synthesis. In simple terms, it tells your muscles, time to build. And this becomes critically important after age 40, when natural muscle loss begins, a process known as sarcopenia. Every decade after 40, we lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass. You might say, "So what? I'm not a bodybuilder." But you do need muscle, because muscle isn't just about strength, it's your metabolism, your balance, your ability not to fall on ice in winter, your independence at 70, 80, even 90 years old. And here's where things get interesting. Not every cottage cheese product will give you these benefits. Now I'm going to tell you what manufacturers don't advertise, and what many online nutrition experts somehow forget to mention. You walk into a grocery store, you're standing in front of the refrigerated section. 30 different options. Every package says natural, traditional, healthy. Prices vary dramatically. So how do you choose? Most people look at fat percentage, 9%, 5%, 0%, and they think, "I'll buy fat-free, it must be healthier." That's the first critical mistake. Fat-free cottage cheese is not poison, but it's not a miracle either. When fat is removed, flavor and satiety disappear. Manufacturers often compensate with sugar or starch. And here's something important. Fat-soluble vitamins A and E naturally present in milk are lost along with the fat. That's why 5 to 9% fat is the sweet spot. It's satisfying. It tastes good. And the vitamins are still there. But this is only the beginning. There's something worse than fat-free cottage cheese. It's something labeled as a cottage cheese product. And that is not cottage cheese. Legally, chemically, biologically. It's a completely different substance. Milk fat may be replaced with palm oil, starches added for thickness, stabilizers, thickeners, preservatives. And worst of all, the protein is often not natural milk protein. It may be reconstituted from powdered milk or partially plant-based. Your body looks at it and says, "Where's the promised protein? Where's the calcium? What is this?" So how do you tell the difference? Read the label carefully. If cottage cheese is written in large letters, but in small print it says product or something similar, put it back. If there are more than 3 ingredients, that's a red flag. Real cottage cheese contains milk starter culture, maybe salt. That's it, period. But let's go even deeper, because even real cottage cheese isn't always the same. And here's the part most people don't know. You've learned to distinguish real cottage cheese from imitation products. You've chosen a 5 to 9% fat version. Seems perfect, right? Not quite. There's one factor that changes everything: temperature. Yes, the temperature at which it was produced. There are two fundamentally different manufacturing methods: traditional acid fermentation, where milk is cultured at around 30 degrees, 86 degrees Celsius, and high-temperature processing, where the process happens at 70 to 80 degrees, 158, 176 degrees. If cottage cheese is produced at high temperatures, the protein structure becomes much denser. It's still nutritious, but slightly harder to digest. It can feel heavy in the stomach. More importantly, high heat destroys beneficial lactic acid bacteria. So as a protein source, great. As a probiotic for gut health, useless. And some B vitamins are partially destroyed as well. How can you tell which method was used? Honestly, manufacturers rarely state it directly on the packaging. But there are indirect signs. Traditional acid-set cottage cheese is usually looser in texture, slightly crumbly with a mild tang. It may separate a little, and that's normal. High-temperature cottage cheese is denser, almost rubbery, and has very little acidity and taste. Another important detail: shelf life. If cottage cheese lasts 2 weeks or more, it likely contains fewer beneficial bacteria. Real live cottage cheese typically lasts no more than 7 to 10 days. And that's a good sign. It means active cultures are still present and working. Now here's the most important thing you need to understand about cottage cheese. And this can completely change how you approach your nutrition. You can buy the best, most expensive farm-fresh cottage cheese. But if you eat it the wrong way, you lose half the benefit. So here's how to get the maximum value from it. First, timing. There's a popular belief that cottage cheese is best eaten at night because it digests slowly and feeds your muscles while you sleep. That's only half true. Calcium is absorbed more efficiently when you're active and moving. So breakfast or lunch is excellent if your goal is bone strength and osteoporosis prevention. Casein protein at night can be helpful, but mainly if you trained earlier in the day and your goal is muscle growth or preservation. In that case, have it 1 to 2 hours before bed. Second, what you combine it with. This is where the magic happens. Cottage cheese plus fresh herbs, parsley, dill, basil, is an ideal combination. Leafy herbs contain vitamin K, which works together with calcium and directs it into your bones instead of your blood vessels. Yes, excess calcium can deposit in artery walls, contributing to atherosclerosis. Vitamin K helps prevent that. Cottage cheese plus seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, adds magnesium. Magnesium is essential for proper calcium absorption. The ideal calcium to magnesium ratio is about 2.1. Cottage cheese contains plenty of calcium, but very little magnesium. Seeds help correct that imbalance. Now here's what you should absolutely avoid. Mixing cottage cheese with sugar. Sugar promotes glycation, a process where glucose binds to proteins, essentially caramelizing collagen, the structural foundation of your bones and skin. Bones don't become fragile only because calcium is lost, but because the protein matrix weakens. Sugar also increases inflammation, which interferes with mineral absorption. So cottage cheese with sugar is dessert, not health food. If you want sweetness, add berries. Blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. They contain natural sugar, but it's bound to fiber, so you don't get the same insulin spike. Plus, they're rich in antioxidants that protect proteins from oxidative damage. Now let's talk portions. Many people think, the more cottage cheese, the better. Not true. There's a myth that your body can't absorb more than 30 grams of protein at once. That's not accurate. Your body will absorb it. But for maximizing muscle protein synthesis, the optimal dose per meal is about 30-40 grams of protein. If you eat more than that in one sitting, you're mostly just adding extra calories that won't further stimulate muscle growth. So if you buy a 400-gram container and eat it all at once, you're overloading the system. For adults over 40, the optimal daily portion is about 150-200 grams. You can split it, 100 grams at breakfast, 100 grams in the evening. That gives you roughly 30 grams of protein per day from cottage cheese alone. Add protein from other sources, and you can easily reach the recommended intake of about 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, an important point for those over 50. After 50, protein absorption efficiency declines. This is called anabolic resistance. Your muscles require a stronger stimulus to grow, or even to maintain mass. So after 50, you may increase a single serving to about 250 grams, or combine cottage cheese with an egg. This creates a more complete amino acid profile and improves effectiveness. Now pay attention. What I'm about to say may change how you see cottage cheese entirely. Write in the comments right now. Do you eat cottage cheese regularly? And if so, what fat percentage do you prefer? I'm genuinely curious how many people know what I'm about to explain, and your comments help this video reach more people who need this information. Now here's the provocative part. Cottage cheese can be harmful. Yes, you heard that right. Let me explain when. First, excess calcium. Many people think you can't have too much of a good thing and start taking calcium supplements in large amounts, washing them down with milk. Be careful. Research shows that excessive calcium, especially from supplements rather than food, may increase the risk of vascular problems. Your body needs balance. Don't prescribe calcium supplements to yourself. It's safer to obtain calcium from food sources like cottage cheese and cheese. And remember vitamin K. It helps direct calcium where it belongs. Second, lactose intolerance. If you experience bloating, rumbling, or digestive discomfort after eating cottage cheese, you may have lactase deficiency. Cottage cheese contains less lactose than milk, but it still contains some. The solution is simple. Try lactose-free cottage cheese or reduce your portion size. Don't torture your gut. Third, hidden antibiotics. This is a global issue. If producers fail to observe proper withdrawal periods after treating cows with antibiotics, residues can enter the milk, and then the cottage cheese. Regular exposure may contribute to antibiotic resistance. Unfortunately, you can't taste this. Your best protection is choosing reputable brands with strict quality control or verified farmers who provide proper documentation. And avoid buying cottage cheese from questionable roadside sources. That's nutritional roulette. There are two fundamentally different manufacturing methods. Traditional acid fermentation, where milk is cultured at around 30 degree, 86 degree, and high temperature processing, where the process happens at 70, 80 degree, 158, 176 degree. If cottage cheese is produced at high temperatures, the protein structure becomes much denser. It's still nutritious, but slightly harder to digest. It can feel heavy in the stomach. More importantly, high heat destroys beneficial lactic acid bacteria. So as a protein source, great. As a probiotic for gut health, useless. And some B vitamins are partially destroyed as well. How can you tell which method was used? Honestly, manufacturers rarely state it directly on the packaging, but there are indirect signs. Fourth, the raw material. Pay attention to the label, made from whole milk. If it says made from reconstituted milk or normalized using milk powder, it's not necessarily dangerous, but the taste and nutritional value will be different. Now let's put everything together, because that was a lot of information. And I want you to leave this video with absolute clarity. Cottage cheese truly is one of the best foods for people over 40, but only the right kind, eaten the right way. Here's your clear takeaway. Choose cottage cheese with 5 to 9% fat. Don't chase fat-free. Without fat, calcium absorption drops. Avoid cottage cheese products. They're fillers dressed up with marketing. Check the ingredients. No more than 3. Milk, starter culture, maybe salt. Look at the expiration date. The shorter the shelf life, the better. Live cottage cheese lasts up to 10 days. Eat it in the first half of the day if your goal is calcium absorption and bone strength. In the evening if your goal is muscle recovery. Pair it with herbs and seeds. Forget the sugar. Portion size, 150 to 200 grams at a time. Not more. And remember balance. Don't eat cottage cheese 3 times a day, 7 days a week. 2 to 4 times per week is optimal. Now here's your in-store test. Pick up the package and gently press it. If the packaging allows, like paper or foil. If it feels firm and springy, that's a good sign. If it spreads out too easily or feels overly dense and rubbery, questionable. One more trick. Hold it in your hand. A 200-gram package should feel like 200 grams, not lighter. If it feels airy, like there's more space than substance, something extra may have been added. That's it. Now you know more about cottage cheese than 99% of people. Use this knowledge, and your bones, muscles, and heart will thank you. If this video was helpful, hit the like button. It helps the YouTube algorithms show this information to people who truly need it. Subscribe if you haven't already. I regularly break down different foods and health habits in this format. And tell me in the comments, which product should I analyze next? I read every comment and choose topics based on your requests. And remember, health starts with simple, conscious decisions. Every day, every meal, take care of yourself. There are two fundamentally different manufacturing methods. Traditional acid fermentation, where milk is cultured at around $30 K86 degree, and high-temperature processing, where the process happens at 70 to 80 158 to 176 degree. If cottage cheese is produced at high temperatures, the protein structure becomes much denser. It's still nutritious, but slightly harder to digest. It can feel heavy in the stomach. More importantly, high heat destroys beneficial lactic acid bacteria. So as a protein source, great. As a probiotic for gut health, useless. And some B vitamins are partially destroyed as well. How can you tell which method was used? Honestly, manufacturers rarely state it directly on the packaging. But there are indirect signs.